Hey guys, welcome back to Frictionless Commerce. And on this episode, we're going to continue our discussion on the agentic roadmap for B2B distribution and manufacturing. And I want to start this episode with a couple of pointed questions. My first question is this: is your sales team spending more time checking on orders and entering data than they are actually selling and building relationships? The relationship aspect of distributor and manufacturer sales is really at the heart of what makes this industry work. But I often find that usually only 20 to 30% of a sales team's time is spent actually talking with customers, actually selling, being strategic. That means the rest of the time is administrative. And that is a problem. That is friction in your commercial process. And the other question is, are your customers saying something like, hey, I like to be able to self serve. I like this process to move into the 21st century. A lot of times we find that the actual experience today is just the way it was 25 years ago. And as we head into 2026, it's important to realize that these seemingly minor annoyances are actually symptoms of a bigger business problem. And they show us that we may, in fact, be leaking profit. We may have a leaky bucket when it comes to operational costs. And we could be creating a customer experience that, even if our customers aren't telling us outright, we may be frustrating them and creating more work for them than many of the other suppliers that they work with. In addition to that, we could be potentially burning out our very best employees. You don't want to take a Ferrari who's really good at customer service and really good at customer interaction and put them in the field to do data work. That's not a good use of their time. So, in part one, I'll just do a quick recap. We talked about laying the absolute bare minimum essential foundation for the future of frictionless commerce, which is without a doubt going to be agentic and autonomous. Now, as I stated before, we're a long way from seeing that become a reality. However, I want to press this point: the very things that we need to do to get ready for that agentic future are the things that are going to generate immediate impact today. We can immediately solve the issue of website experience. We can solve the issue of leaky bucket customer service and sales teams' lack of efficiency. And we can build a single source of data truth that will power not only agentic search and agentic interaction of the future, but will power the search functionality and the conversion rates of website business today. So, on this episode, we're going to build the house. We have a clean foundation. It's time to move from setup to driving real action. So, I'm going to walk through 3 strategic steps that we can take to solve today's most pressing problems and drive immediate, measurable results. We're going to talk about digitizing the sales and procurement process. We're going to talk about bridging the gap between your front end promises and your back end execution. And then finally, we're going to talk about transforming the website from a simple catalog into your smartest salesperson. I know you're excited as I am to jump in. We got a lot to cover. Welcome to Frictionless Commerce. If you're ready to grow, let's go. All right. So let's start off with step three. This is point one in this episode, but this is step three in the series. This is a three-part series that is going through the B2B agentic roadmap. How do you go from where you are today to where you need to be tomorrow, reaping all of the benefits now? And step three is really all about the biggest source of friction in most distribution and manufacturing businesses, which is the high touch sales process. And when I say high touch, I don't necessarily mean relational. Okay. We want that relational aspect to our sales process. We want to be known for providing an exceptional customer experience, whether that's over the phone, in person on a work site, or at an on site visit, and really sustaining and growing and going deeper in those relationships, whether that's with our distributor partners or with our end customers. What I'm talking about is the manual processes involved in B2B procurement and sales operations. Okay, so I'll explain it this way, right? This is so important. I'll explain why this matters so much now. We'll talk a little bit about what we need to do in terms of action steps for the future, but this is important now, and I'll explain it this way. The modern B2B buyer has the same impatience at work as they do outside of work. Okay. We have been conditioned as human beings living in North America, living in the information age. We have DoorDash, we have Uber. Where is my ride? Where is my lunch? Where is my Amazon order? How is that any different than the way that we show up at work today? People are flustered. People are stretched thin. They have less patience today than they have had at any other point in history. And it's important to meet them at their expectations, right? So a modern B2B buyer expects things like self service for pricing and inventory. They don't need to call in to find out pricing and inventory, whether that's a simple reorder or a complex order, and account management, right? This is the thing, like they need to be able to manage their account. I'm not talking about you managing them as your account. I'm talking about them managing their book of business with you. They expect to do all of these things 24/7 when they need it, how they want it. And the thing about this is that when we force our customer to call in or email us for quotes, this is an invitation to elevate friction, to cost them time, which is the most precious resource today, and push them to start considering switching to a different supplier. Okay, that makes it easier, that makes it faster, and more frictionless. Okay. Don't blame me for saying frictionless 25 times in this episode. It is the name of the show. But there's also this internal problem. So there is issues with your customer in terms of procurement. They need to be more efficient. They need to be faster. They need access to more information, bottom line. But your sales team is often buried in administrative work. Now, this is the thing, right? They are quote builders and order checkers, not strategic growers. That's a problem. The people that are spending 70% of their time entering orders into an ERP are some of the best relational people that you have in your business. These are people you need to be moving from 70% of their time entering orders to flipping that ratio, make it 20% of their time is inside of an ERP. 80% of their time is on the phone, on the job site, delivering value, communicating with your customer, whether that's through Slack or email or on the phone. High touch points, right? High personalization. That's what's going to set you apart. And that's what your customers want. And they don't want spammy, hey, I'm checking in messages. When they engage you, they want high level service. And when we're spending all of our time inside of a black screen ERP system, you're not utilizing your salespeople the way that you could. Now, The problem here is actually has a trickle down effect because not only is that job horribly managed in terms of the way they spend their time, but this is not the type of business role that are going to attract new employees. There is a talent gap in distribution, and we're not finding that many Gen Zers and millennials are attracted to the idea of working in a distribution business. First of all, nobody talks about it. Second of all, when they find out what's involved, they're like, okay, I'm going to sit in a cubicle and I'm going to enter in orders into a antiquated system that looks unlike anything I've ever worked on in my entire life. Remember, they were born in the age of OS Mac systems and Windows 11, right? Like there is a huge disconnect in terms of the way that the experience at work is versus the experience outside of work. Okay, so you're not going to attract the best talent. And the best talent that you have, those relational people, this stuff burns them out. They're not going to stick around very long. And so these are things that are really like existential crises for our business. This is a very existential, real crisis for our future of our business. So let's talk about some of the immediate benefits of digitizing this antiquated sales and purchasing process. Number one, okay, we already touched on this. We're going to free up sales for strategic growth initiatives. We can shift our sales reps from order takers to becoming proactive consultants, okay? Helping your customers solve the procurement process, doing it better, faster, cheaper. I know that that's not necessarily what we're looking. We're not necessarily looking to cut out orders or reduce the book of business with our customers. But when we show up and we show them how to save money, maybe that's switching to a different brand of product. Maybe that's finding, creative solutions to bring in more stock and make sure that they're getting the very best pricing and supply chain reliability. This is, I think, the job of the modern B2B distributor. Okay. Next one up is empowering customer self service. We talk a lot about customer service in distribution. It's important. It's one of the most expensive operational costs in the entire business. But what happens when we turn a customer portal into an indispensable procurement tool for your customer? Similar to the concept of punch out, right? Once you've made that integration, once you've established the repeat ordering process through a procurement tool, you've kind of locked in that customer pretty well. And you can do this same concept through a very good B2B e-commerce portal. And because, I think we get confused about what it really is a B2B e-commerce portal. A B2B e-commerce portal is not a place where you can go in and just simply look at past orders, track the status of an order. That's basic B2C stuff. I'm talking about logging into a portal, building out extensive project lists or departmental lists, sharing that with multiple users, maybe dozens, hundreds of buyers that work at different companies, especially if you're selling to enterprise accounts, having complex approval workflows, budget constraints, all of these things that allow your customer to truly manage their procurement exercise, to truly manage their procurement operations. This is huge. It's a game changer. And yet, very few distributors and manufacturers are doing this well. We can slash the sales cycle, right? We can cut out so much time and friction by using configure price quote, CPQ tools. These are the kind of tools that your sales team can use as well as your customers to generate accurate quotes in minutes instead of days, avoiding all of the back and forth. The data that feeds these tools enables both your customers and your sales team to be able to create quotes and get those quotes converted into orders in a very efficient and accurate way. Now, the last point here I'll say about some of the benefits is that you can dramatically lower your cost to serve your customer. And of course, this is something, if I was a distributor, this is probably one of the key metrics I would be tracking. How much does it cost to serve a customer? And because inside of that KPI, are about 100 different things I can creatively do to lower that cost. So that's exciting. But every self service order, think about this, every order that is a self service order that your customer is utilizing your e commerce platform to make that purchase order is a order that doesn't have to touch the sales team. Okay. And that is going to immediately remove operational costs and free up margin in your bottom line. All right. So let's talk about some practical action steps. Okay. You probably listen to all of those benefits and you're going, okay, I've heard some of that. I understand, the benefits, like why these are so important. But let me help you like put some baby steps in action. In the first episode, we talked about baby steps. I don't believe that the path to agentic commerce is a rapid, overnight, massive overhaul digital transformation. Okay. A lot of people talk about digital transformation. I talk about digital transformation. I believe we need a digital transformation, but we don't all define it in the same way. And I would say, as an industry expert, I would say that wholesale digital transformation is not realistic for most distribution and manufacturing businesses. We need to think about this journey incrementally. We need to think about it in terms of baby steps. So here's my practical baby steps to digitize your commercial operations. Number one is to map the quote to cash process, the entire journey, right? Grab a whiteboard, sit down with your department heads, and map out the entire journey that an order takes in your business. Every manual step. Who does it have to touch? What departments are doing what with it? And you're going to be asking your team for the brutal truth. Don't just tell me how it should work. Tell me exactly how it works today. I want to know where every road bump is on that order path. Okay. Action number two is interview your best and your worst customers. Get them to, sit down with you and really go through why your best customers stay with you. What is it about what you do that makes you their preferred supplier or vendor? And then find somebody who has left, or is maybe an account that's at risk. You're steadily seeing a decline. They're more than likely starting to phase you out, or maybe they have already phased you out and they've gone somewhere else. But ask them for their honesty, right? And this could win them back, by the way, like just being humble enough and truthful enough to just get their opinion about where you drop the ball. Okay. You may find that there's friction in the sales process. Could be that they've had returns. It could be that there's mistakes. They got shipped the wrong product. Could be that, they don't have a self-service portal. Find out what it is that is causing friction that would potentially cause your customers to leave you. Okay. And then finally, number four is to define one customer workflow. Again, we're talking about baby steps here. Sit with a key customer, okay? Somebody that loves you, somebody that you trust, somebody who trusts you, and map their internal procurement process. Okay. Start with that and build that, the learning from that, build that into a single workflow using your e commerce platform. Okay, that is going to be your template for success. And as you discover, and you probably already know multiple types of use cases with your customer base, but that's going to be the one, right, that you want to make golden. You want to make that your standard operating procedure, and that can be the first thing that you architect with your tech team or with an SI agency to make sure that you're getting the absolute best value out of your e-commerce solution. All right, step number four in the agentic commerce roadmap for B2B distributors and manufacturers. And this is connecting the front end promises that you're making, whether that's in sales or on your website, connecting that brand promise to the back end reality. Okay. And this is where a lot of distributors get tripped up because They understand easily enough the concept of putting products on a website and allowing a customer to purchase those products. But how does it work with my back end operations? Okay. And it's true that a beautiful website, and many distributors have found out through failed e commerce implementations that a beautiful website is absolutely worthless if at the end of the day we cannot deliver, and we cannot deliver in an efficient way on the product that is being ordered. So this step is all about bridging the gap between the customer facing commerce platform and your backend operations, more than likely your ERP or potentially your warehouse management system. Okay. Why is this so important? Okay. I'll tell you why. Trust is the currency of B2B. We know that relationships are built on trust. And honestly, that trust is not built on the front end of a website. Okay. It's not built with, beautiful words and graphic design and user interface. It's built in fulfillment. Okay. So it's about delivering, in other words, exactly what you said you're going to deliver. So I want you to use a high stakes example, to think about how important this is. Unexpected back order can absolutely shut down your customer's production line. That's the scariest, like, worst case scenario, right? And this could cost them potentially thousands of dollars. And not only will it shut down their operations, even if it's for a day, it's unacceptable, right? You're going to feel the wrath of that problem, but it's going to destroy your credibility as well. So how do we avoid things like that happening when we implement an e-commerce platform? So, what we need to do is we need to acknowledge the fact that sales and customer service reps, they're constantly fighting fires. Maybe not quite as extreme as that, but there's wildfires like that scenario, but there's also these small fires that they're constantly having to put out every day, right? And they're tracking orders, and they're making sure that the promise is being fulfilled with your customer, and instead of actually helping and serving the customer, right? And one of the biggest areas where I see customer service reps or sales reps, outside sales even, spending a weird amount of their time is what I call the wismo calls. And the Wismo calls are the "where is my order" calls. Where is my order? This is lack of visibility in B2B commerce is one of the weirdest things. And the reason why is because it's really built on this old model of a customer service rep connected with a procurement person or the buyer, and per creating paper invoices, and the ERP system's fundamental lack of functionality that enables real-time updates along the way. And this is why it's frustrating, not only for getting an order out to a customer, but it can be frustrating, maybe even more so when a return or an RMA request comes in, for a customer. And that is even more frustrating because now you're dealing with, not only, where's my credit, but also where's my replacement? How can I get it? Like, it just becomes more complex, right? When you're sending products back up the supply chain. But I want to talk about, so I mean, this is pain, right? This is the definition of friction. And it's the most damaging potentially example of friction in a commerce operation. So here's some practical benefits, or so here's some immediate benefits that we can implement, right? Here's the return on investment in terms of digitizing this back end, operations. Number one is that we can build trust with inventory transparency. This seems like a no brainer to me, and I guess maybe many other people that have more experience in e commerce and digitization. But at the end of the day, not many distributor or manufacturer e-commerce sites actually show real-time inventory, distribution center level stock information. And, this information on your product pages is one of the most powerful confidence builders that you can implement for your customers. And if you really don't have this, and you're wondering like, why are my customers not adopting my e-commerce platform? It's probably because of this. Like, this is essential, right? Like, to me, this is a no-brainer, but it often gets missed. Inventory, where are you stocking these products? Are they close to me? How fast can I get them? What is the price? Okay, it's fundamental. Okay, we have to have that. The next thing that we can benefit from is eliminating these Wizmo calls. Okay, where is my order? Stop that. We don't need to answer that question. We don't need to spend even 1 minute. We don't need to spend 30 seconds responding an email to a customer or picking up the phone and entering, and going into a system and finding the answer to that and passing that on. We don't need to do that. Okay. Now, I think an order management system is the future of distribution commerce, and I'll explain a little bit more about that. But one of the main reasons why an order management system is so important today is that it provides proactive automated alerts. You can build as much transparency into the purchasing and delivery process as you want with an OMS. Because an OMS for a distributor, and a lot of companies use an OMS really as the fundamental piece of their tech stack, right? Like in retail, it's usually an OMS plus a finance system plus their e-commerce. And, this is essentially the foundation. Now, in distribution and manufacturing, you have an ERP system, which is the foundation, which is the ultimate systems of record. But an OMS can integrate. And again, remember going back to episode 1, the API first methodology, an OMS can integrate into your ERP using those APIs, those doorways, to pass information back and forth. So in this scenario, imagine a customer places an order on the e-commerce platform. It goes into your ERP system for financial reconciliation, for inventory management, or into a WMS. That information is then transferred into an OMS, which starts a workflow about the status of that order from the point that it was purchased all the way through delivery. Okay. And that OMS system can intelligently route. And not only that, but that OMS system can intelligently route orders to the optimal fulfillment location. Okay. So imagine, your customer places a bulk order for 12 different branches, but you're only able, with your existing technology, you're only able to fulfill that order to one place, and then they have to break that and get it sent to all the 12 different branches. That's unacceptable. That's creating friction. An OMS can take that order, break it up, and have it sent to those 12 different branches and have notifications sent all along the way to the right people, and it creates a beautiful customer experience. And then the other thing is, the last thing I'll say is that as a major benefit, your sales team can actively sell fast, predictable fulfillment as a key differentiator. Like, this is sort of like the front end of your website is sort of like the sales pitch to your customer, right? It is, I can do this. The sales and marketing, like, here's what we do. And this is why we're great. And we have the products you need, the pricing that meets your budget. But the OMS system, it's the back end tool that is the proof in the pudding, right? It is literally making your promises a reality. I think without it, it's very difficult to grow in a significant way your online business. So an OMS system, one example of an OMS system that you should check out is a company called Kibo Commerce. They do have an e-commerce system. They do have a CRM, but the heart of their business, the heart of their operations is this OMS system that manages this complex workflows, the behind the scenes delivery of those orders. Okay. So go check out Kibo Commerce. And then I'll just talk about As we wrap up the second step here, let's talk about some baby steps, right? So let's break this step down, this vision of, creating this order management operations. Let's break this down into baby steps, okay? Because right now we're a long way from having a seamless Amazon-like experience for our B2B customers. So, number one is to identify your inventory source of truth. Those records have to be accurate. For 99% of you, this information is going to live inside your ERP. But the goal is to get that data out of the ERP and into the hands of your customers. Okay. So again, it goes back to making sure that our systems are connected and that the data that flows between those systems is clean, organized, and accurate. Number two is to start with a simple integration. You don't have to plug everything in all at one time. You might short circuit something. So you don't have to worry about connecting everything. Just display something like in stock, out of stock. Okay. That could be the baby step. It's either in stock or it's out of stock, point blank. You don't have to list all of the DCs. You don't have to list the accurate numbers if you're not 1,000% confident yet. Start with in stock, out of stock on your product pages. This information, of course, pulled from your ERP via an API. And I will say that this is a massive immediate win. And when you've implemented that on your e-commerce websites, tell your customers, re-engage the adoption process. You may find that you draw back customers that previously said, I'm not using the website. Number three here is to analyze your fulfillment failures. Okay. We don't like doing this. And I'll tell you, like, a lot of distributors I found don't really track their RMAs. Some of them have, inconsistent or incomplete reason codes. Like maybe they don't even track the reason codes or the dollar amount, but really consider utilizing some analytics tools like Pivottree's control tower that sits on top of all of these systems, which allows you to pull data from these systems, from your ERP, from your e-commerce site, figure out where the breakdown happened. Where was the point of friction in the purchasing process? And or even in post sales, right? Where did an order get held up? Where did we have a back order, right? Where was the information that we displayed on the front end not being fulfilled on the back end with the customer? So understanding where those late shipments are, understanding where those returns are coming from. This is one of the biggest root causes of lack of trust, and you want to identify those and fix it immediately. Okay. And then action number four is to automate one communication, not automate every communication, not deploy agents to run your entire sales and customer service teams. We're not there yet. Okay. Guys in customer service and sales, relax. Okay. No need to fire up the resume yet. Okay. We're a long way from that happening because honestly, we're not automating customer communication really at all. Okay. And the tools are there to do it, but we haven't done it yet in distribution and manufacturing. But one of the most, think about this, like just do one thing at a time. What is the most common fulfillment question that your team gets? I would guess it's the Wismo. Where is my order? I would guess it's the Wismo, but think about that. What question do you get the most from your customers? So set up an automated email or text messaging alert. Your order has shipped. Your order has shipped. Your order is being picked. Your order is on the truck. Okay. It's on the way. Okay, if you could do that all throughout the entire fulfillment life cycle, that would be amazing. That's your goal. You got to get to that point. But the first step might be your order is confirmed. Your order is on its way. That's an important basic baby step that you can take. All right. Third and final point of this episode, but step 5 in our B2B agentic roadmap. Okay. Step 5 is this: activate your digital shelf. Step 5 is this: activate your digital shelf. Your digital shelf. Okay. Think about the energy that goes into a storefront, okay? Some of you may have storefronts. Most of you probably just have DCs, maybe a will call desk. But think about if you owned a storefront, think about how you would organize that, right? Like what would you do? Like, are you just going to build it the way you would build a warehouse and you would just have racks of products, right? No, you would not do that, right? You would make it interesting, just like Walmart or Target or any of the most, common retail stores that you go into. You're going to find things like end caps, okay, where you're going to promote the most important brands, the most products that you're trying to move, products that you can offer at a discounted rate. You're going to promote those products on the end caps of the aisles because that is the most prominent place in retail. And when you think about designing your e-commerce website and how to market and merchandise it to your customers, right, the same concept is there. You want to design it and you want to merchandise your products to your customers in a certain way. The difference is this: in B2B, I'm not merchandising to a broad, base of random customers that are coming into my door. I am merchandising to a company. I'm merchandising to a specific account so that, the idea here is that we can then move to personalized purchasing experiences, personalized buying experiences on the website. So let's turn the corner, right? We have developed the concept of a smooth, frictionless sales process and a reliable fulfillment operations. And so step 5 is really about transforming what most B2B companies have, which is a static catalog. Okay. A static catalog, which is, the digital version of what used to sit on purchasing managers' shelves, and killed a lot of trees. But we have a digital catalog. And what we're trying to do is transform that into an intelligent, dynamic merchandising engine. Okay. And this way, your website, it stops being like just a product list and starts becoming your most effective sales tool. Okay. And I think maybe sometimes this is where salespeople get intimidated because they know that if e-commerce is done the right way, um, and for thankfully for them in B2B, it's not often done the right way, but if it is done the right way, the right products show up in front of the right customers with the right price at the right time. And that's kind of what sales does. But a website can do it and potentially do it better. A website doesn't sleep, right? So why does this matter, right? B2B buyers, especially people like engineers and procurement specialists, who spend a lot of their time researching online before they ever consider talking to a sales rep. They're on your website, right? They're checking out what you have. They're looking into, they're doing homework on lists they have to build, and, they're working on pricing. But if your website is hard to search, they can't find the products they're looking for, it lacks the detailed informational data, then you are essentially invisible to those customers during really what is the most critical part of the procurement process. So personalization, okay, and intelligent discovery using AI assisted search are now going to become fundamental B2B expectations. And the reason why that is, like, think about this, okay? Products that your customers use may be described in a totally different way than the actual product information that is in your ERP or your PIM. And what an AI agent can do in supporting that search functionality, that finding process of the buyer's journey, is it can read through the lines and translate sort of the slang language that your customers may be using to describe products and provide accurate search results. So it allows your customers to unearth the products they're looking for instead of having to, like, search through crazy taxonomies and, drilling down into 4 levels of categories and using filters that don't usually work very well because the data is bad. AI powered search is a game changer. Okay. And the next one is increasing your average order value. Plain and simple, using smart recommendations. Okay. An AI agent, AI tools, and some of the best B2B e-commerce platforms out there, whether you're talking about BigCommerce or OroCommerce or Kibo Commerce, even Shopify, like these tools are there. They're ready to be utilized with the right setup and with the right data. But what it will allow you to do is it understands what products should be recommended based on the product itself that's been ordered. Hey, here's all the replacement parts. Typically we find that customers need to order these parts 3 months after they install this item. And, shall we go ahead and set up a quote for that? I mean, this kind of stuff is game changing, right? And the other thing to do is that you can take a look at past order history. And when that customer logs in, it's like, oh, by the way, looks like you usually order these products every 6 months. Maybe it's time to restock. Okay. Those are some ways that you can be increasing your average order value. And you can be generating higher quality leads. Like we can actually do things like track the user behavior on the website. We can look at what product pages they're viewing. We can see which spec sheets they're viewing. This information is most of the time completely ignored and not acted on by marketing teams. But an AI agent, because a marketing team doesn't have the time to do this stuff, an AI agent can utilize that, right? Like we can look at user behavior, identify where that purchase intent is, and then raise the flag with a sales team or engage that customer through a chat function or email campaign or something of that sort. And then finally, boosting customer loyalty, right? And this is the idea of personalizing the experience, right? So that the relevant content and pricing that your customers see when they log in makes them feel seen, makes them feel understood. And you don't think that there's feelings in B2B e-commerce or in B2B, distribution manufacturing? Of course there's feelings. I've seen, $100 million partnerships go, south because, somebody cheated on a golf course. Like, hell yes, there's feelings. And we have to acknowledge those feelings when we think about creating the online customer experience. And when a customer is able to log in and they're able to route orders the way that they need to have it routed. It's set up the right way to match their procurement processes, their approval processes. When tools are in place, safeguards are in place for inventory and budget levels. These are the things that make a customer feel like, okay, these guys built this for me, and this is my tool. And if I don't use it, I'm kind of stupid, right? And that goes a really long way because you're adding value that goes far beyond transaction. So here's some baby steps you can take to turn again that digital static catalog that you have now into your best performing sales tool. Number one is to analyze your on-site search logs. Okay. Again, this is an area of data that often gets ignored, but your search data is really a gold mine in terms of understanding customer behavior. So find the top queries where no results found come up. Okay. Look at what they're typing into the search bar. That's an immediate to-do list. That's your low-hanging fruit. Where are products being searched for that aren't found? Maybe they're not on the website at all. Maybe you need to merchandise these products, get the product data set up and push it to the website. Maybe the data is just fundamentally broken and what the customer is searching for does not match the way that your data is built. Okay, so that's step number one. Action number two, or step number two, baby step number two, is to implement a single recommendation automation tool. That's so complicated. Implement one single recommendation workflow. You don't need a complex algorithm. You don't need AI agents to go off the rails and creating like a tangled web of communication, which could honestly backfire and create a weird customer experience. What you need to do is just add a simple, you may also need section for your best selling products or the products that your customers buy in their account portal. Now, this is simple, right? Like, think you have a device that you're selling. You may need to also purchase batteries. You may need cables. You may need mounting hardware. Think of all of the accessory parts that go along with that unit or with that item. Make sure that they're connected with those items. And you can do this, of course, in the data backend. You can use a PEM to do this. Making these relational connections with your product data. This will go a really long way. Okay. So that's action number 2. Baby step number 3 is to interview a procurement manager. Again, ask a friendly customer to do a screen share session with you. Okay. This is so fun. And what you'll see is how they use your website. And I remember as a former B2B e-commerce agency and platform owner, I would sometimes jump on these sessions, and it was eye opening because, my team would create this customer experience, this online, buying experience and in website and, the taxonomy and all of that stuff. And I was thinking one time I watched the customer, or a customer's customer, because we were building websites for distributors. And I watch one of their customers use their website, and I remember thinking, wow, we spent 6 months building this taxonomy. And not one time did this purchasing manager use the menu, the product menu. Not one time. They went to search every single time. And that was eye-opening, right? And we saw that actually repeat time and time again. So we started minimizing the drop-down menu and started maximizing the search bar, just as an example. So action number 4, baby step number 4 here is to gate one high asset. Action number 4 here is to gate one high value asset. Okay. This could be like a pricing tool. This could be a project guide, project, something. You have to get inside of the head of your procurement customers, right? Or your contractor customers. What is something you can put in their hands right now that will immediately solve a problem that they face in their job every day? Make a tool, create some sort of tool for them. Maybe it's something that they can use with their customers. So think about that. What are some creative ways that you can build tools to serve as lead generation devices on your website? Okay, so that is baby step number 4. All right, so we talked about a lot. We covered a lot of ground today, and this was really the meat of this 3-part series. Just as a quick recap, step number 1, back in the last episode, we talked about the most essential part of this agentic roadmap, which is laying the concrete foundation with data, right? And we talked about data being literally the lifeblood of your commerce operations, your digital transformation journey. Okay. There's no doubt about that. I don't think anybody disagrees with that. And then we talked about something that maybe people don't talk about as much, which is making sure that your technology has an API first architecture. So, in other words, all of your technology is able to connect and pass data back and forth through these gateways, because this is what really is going to become the future of distribution and manufacturing, right? We need connections to syndication sources. We need connections to our customers. We need connections to our different software applications that are best of breed when it comes to a CRM or a PIM or an e-commerce platform. It really doesn't work if we're utilizing this monolithic model in the future. Okay. We have to do away with the monolithic model. We have to get into the mindset of best of breed. And the only way to do that is making sure that our technology foundation is built on API first mentality. And then, and today we talked about step 3, which was digitizing, taking the friction out of the sales and procurement process. which is so important because that's where all of our operational costs are tied up. And that's usually where we have the leaky profit bucket. And then in step 4 of this agentic roadmap, we talked about making sure that we can fulfill the promises via our supply chain with our front end. And then in step 4, we talked about how we fulfill the promises that we're making on the front end with our execution on the back end. And we talked about how an OMS, order management system, can help with this problem, and how it's is going to become a more and more complex problem that we're going to have to solve. We can't solve it with a legacy ERP system, and e-commerce systems typically fall short of being able to provide real-time updates all throughout every type of order transaction. Okay, so that was step number 4. And then step number 5 in this agentic roadmap is this concept of turning our digital catalog, our static website catalog, into an efficient, powerful marketing and merchandising sales team, right? That's on 24/7, your customers in the way that they want to be served. Personalized recommendations, AI powered search. Now, next episode, we are going to talk about the mindset, the culture, and the long-term, short-term strategy that is required to make this transition, to take all of the stuff that I've been talking about here and actually make it, put it into action. Okay. It's one thing to have a vision, right? The visionary will say, what's next? Okay. They're looking into the future, right? But the integrator is the person that's going to ask what's first. Okay. Because an integrator is somebody who can take a look at the vision and they can say, wow, that's big. That's amazing. I'm on board with that. But where do we start, right? Where do we begin? What is the next right thing for us to do? And I hope that I've helped do a little bit of that for you in this series. But next week, or in the next episode, when you come back and you watch part 3 of this is something that I'm going to create, that is something that you can give to your executive leadership team. You can give this to a CEO or a CFO, and you can explain to them how this digital transformation, this roadmap that you want to go down, it isn't an overhaul, right? It is an incremental, step-by-step process, and each of those steps have KPIs, and each of those steps have an action plan, and here's how we're going to do it. And here's the return. Your executive team wants to know not what to do, right? They want to know how you're going to do it, and they want to know what are the returns on that effort. Okay. So we're going to go through all of that in the next episode. I hope you come back. I want to leave you with this question, because we talked about friction, right? And this is the Frictionless Commerce channel and podcast. So I'm going to ask you this question. If you're watching on YouTube, or you're engaging with this content on LinkedIn, answer this question in the comments, okay? Really think about this. What is the biggest point of friction in your business right now? Don't be shy, okay? Ask this question. I'm not going to come after you and try to sell you something. Just answer the question, because other people are going to benefit from you identifying where the biggest points of friction are in your sales operations, with your product data, with your technology stack. Okay. This is the kind of stuff that we need to have a conversation about if we're going to get better. Iron will sharpen iron, guys, and that's why we're here. So leave a comment below. I'd love to hear more about it. If you haven't done so already, make sure you like this video, subscribe, hit that notification bell, because you're not going to want to miss the next episode or future episodes of Frictionless Commerce. Looking forward to having some cool guests on the show as well. We're going to have some great conversations. Guys, thank you for joining us. Okay. Thank you for spending your time with me. You've made it this far. You are a rock star and a digital change champion. Guys, if you're ready to grow, let's go.